1, legend! What is going on, racers? This is JC from Soko Racing. Today is the 26th of March 2021 and we are back at it again with another installation video. This time, we're going to do a boost gauge installation on my 2010 AUDI B8 S4. Joking, S4. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so now that the unboxing is done, I will do a brief introduction of all of the parts I have here. First off, you will need silicone hose, 4mm, at least 2 meters. If you have more than that, good. Next up, I have a 52mm EPMAN Boost gauge. We have a lot of boost gauges in stock here at Soko Racing, but I choose the EPMAN one because it's small, sleek, and we haven't sold one in a long time. The content of the boost gauge is over here. And now, the ECS tuning boost adapter boost step kit for your EA837 3-liter TFSI supercharged engine. The boost step comes with boost step and 4 different plugs. One of them is a stopper and the other 3 are vacuum plugs. Today, we will only be using this boost step for our boost gauge, but I will be installing both vacuum ports on the adapter because I want to save one for my water methanol kit in the future. I will be using a silicone stopper to stop one of the plugs just like this. I will sambong this to my boost gauge. So without further ado, let's go ahead and head into the installation. Okay, so now we are at our engine. This is your 3-liter wonderful supercharged engine. So we will only be zooming on to this part in this installation video. The first thing you want to do is you want to grab yourself a T30. In this case, I'm using an Allen key, and you want to remove 7 bolts here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Total 7. So I'll just get that started first. Once you get all the 7 bolts off, this part of your supercharger is going to drop out just like that. You want to be very fucking careful and don't mess anything up. Now that this is off, you can see the orange color O-ring here. Do not fuck that up. If this O-ring over here is looking worn out, you might as well replace it. You can see here, mine is still in good condition, so I shall not replace it. We shall leave the O-rings at the side because we're going to clean it later before reinstallation. Now, this is the part. I don't know what is this called. I guess that is a supercharger flap. I will just call it a supercharger flap lah. Okay? This is taken out like this. The black plastic part will be replaced by the boost step. Plug and play. Okay? No modifications are necessary. You will not be using this plastic part anymore because it's going to be replaced by the boost step. Installation of the boost step is as simple as removing this thing from your supercharger, making sure all the O-rings are there, and then replacing this one before you do the installation. Just as simple as that. There is also another O-ring on the inside here. If it is looking worn, it is tearing, you might want to replace it. Same goes for the one here and the orange one there. There will be 3 O-rings in total. If your car is like me, very obedient, very good boy, good girl, there's nothing to be replaced. You just want to grab a clean piece of cloth and your throttle body cleaner from Mr. DIY, and you just want to give the mating surfaces a thorough clean and make sure that they are clean and there's no dirt and residue before you reinstall them. Now clean the mating surface. Before we install the boost step, we want to tighten these 2 ports over here. I have used some white plumbing tape on the thread of this nipple and this nipple before I tighten it with plier so that it doesn't leak any boost. Grab lubrication of some kind, WD-40. This is the lubrication that ECS Tuning gave me together with the boost step. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to slightly lubricate the O-rings. Okay, now that it's all oiled up. Next up, I shall lubricate this part because this is where we force it inside of the metal thing. Just like that. Get it real good, oil up real good. Before we work our way in, ta-da! Now, it's just a matter of reassembling all of these parts. Make sure it's flush. There shouldn't be any gaps here. It should sit flush like this. Okay? Next up, I'm going to lubricate this O-ring also. This is Smurf blood because it's blue. Once that is done, this is lubricated. This is flush. The orange color O-ring over here is lubricated and flush. We shall do the installation. Okay, once all of the 7 bolts are tightened back and everything is in place, everything is tight, we can start to look for a hole in the firewall so that we can pass our silicone hose through. This is the sensor of the boost gauge, and we can also run the wiring through the firewall and leave the sensor outside in the engine bay, but I do not want to do that because the engine bay is very hot. Water might touch the sensor, oil might touch the sensor. It's going to reduce the lifespan of the sensor dramatically. So what I'm going to do is, instead I'm going to run the silicone hose from the boost tab here into the cabin so that I can place the sensor inside. Now I'm going to start looking for a hole in the firewall that I can pass my silicone hose through. We shall start looking for a hole in the firewall where we can pass our silicone hose through. Okay, the boost pipe is finally in. I'm going to show you how I did it. Now we're in the engine bay. This is the boost tab. The bottom port is already blocked by the stopper. This is the top port. So this is how I ran my boost pipe. Okay, goes here all the way through the same sleeve as this pipe is coming out of, going through the same sleeve. Next up, after the sleeve, I cut a hole over here in this rubber thing so that I can still cap it as usual. If I were to run it somewhere else, I wouldn't be able to cap it because once I cap it, the silicone hose is going to be squeezed and the reading is not going to be as accurate. So you do not want to do anything awkward to bend the hose like this or to squish the hose like this. We want to run our hoses as smooth as possible. We do not want any awkward angles or anything of that sort. Once it's in the rubber socks, it just runs down all the way through here before it goes into this small hole at the side here. This way, when the when the ECU is plugged back in, the pipe is not blocking the ECU and the ECU is not going to block the pipe. This is the best way to do it. And from the inside, once you remove all of this cover, okay, you will be able to see the outside through here, and you will also be able to see your boost pipe over here. So part 2 is done. Part 1 is installation of the boost tab, and part 2 is the process of running the boost pipe from your engine bay to your cabin. Part 2 is done. Now we shall head on to part 3. Part 3 is installing the boost gauge inside. So give me a quick second. I will install this ECU back, I will cap it back, and I will cap all the covers back before we head on inside. Your job here in the engine bay is done. Now that your job in the engine bay is done, we move on to the interior. Since we have ran our boost pipe through the firewall over on the driver's side, so we will only be working on the driver's side here. The installation instructions will differ with every gauge, but one thing you need to do first is to remove this cover over here, exposing your fuse box, and secondly, this cover over here. This cover is held on by 3 8mm bolts. There are 2 at the bottom, and once you open up this panel over here, there is going to be 1 here. So there's 3 in total. 1, 2, and 3. You need to remove this panel and this panel so that you can have more working room, and also so that you expose your fuse box, because we will be getting all of our current from the fuse box. Nowhere else. There will be no splicing of wires, no looping of wires. Everything will be done properly. We will also be using fuse tabs. A fuse tab allows you to properly extract current out of your fuse box. So in this case, we'll be looking for 3 different wires. One is ground. Ground is also known as body. So body can be anywhere as long as it's touching a metal object. That is ground. We will also be looking for a constant and an ignition. Constant means there will be current running through the wire, be it your car is on, be it your car is off. That is constant. It's like a battery current. No matter what it is, there will be current running through the wire. So with ignition, we want the gauge to start up when we turn on our engine. We will also be looking for ignition. I will teach you how to do it. First of all, you need a test light. Attach the crocodile clip to a metal object like this. Then on every fuse, there will be 2 poles. So here you can see my car is off, but when I touch the fuse, the test light lights up, which means that current is passing through this fuse. No matter if my car is off, my car is on, it's running, it's parked, current is running through this fuse. So all of these fuses can be used as constant power. If possible, you want to get your current from an empty fuse socket so that you do not accidentally disturb anything that all of these fuses are currently linked to. So I will be using this empty socket in this case. Next up, we want to look for the ignition. To look for ignition, we want the test light to light up when the ignition is on. So let's see. Yeah, this is ignition. So this can be used for ignition and this can be used for constant. Let's see if there is any empty sockets. There is no empty socket, so I will have to use the fuse tab on one of these small fuses here. Anyone will do. You can see, ignition off, ignition on. There you have it. We have identified our 3 very important current sources. So next up, I can go ahead and prepare for installation. Battery, ignition, ground. Now everything is temporarily hooked up. We are just trying to make sure that everything works before we actually mount our boost gauge and also connect our boost sensor and settle all of this mess. Oh my God. Yup, everything looks good. Now we will go ahead and tape the gauge on, hook up our sensor and get rid of all of this mess before we go for a test drive. Next up, I will be taking off the cover of the A pillar because I am going to be mounting my gauge right here. So the wires are going to run through here down to the bottom where it actually meets the fuse box and where the sensor actually meets the boost pipe. So in order to remove this A pillar cover, you see the airbag logo over here. You just need to get something flat and sharp. Just pry it out. Before you get a T27, there will be a screw inside. There's just one screw here, and it should come right off. These are the fuse tabs that I have prepared for this installation. The big one is the constant power, the small one is the ignition, and I also have an eyelet for the grounding. So let's plug the big one in. Okay. Next up is the small one. Here. Lastly, ground. Now that all the wires are where they should be, the gauge socket is up there, the boost sensor socket is down here, and both of the fuse tabs and the eyelet is connected, I shall start reassembling everything and install the gauge for the stand before we wrap it up.
This one on top better.
Why?
More tuner.
More? Bertuner. Okay.
Nicer lah, but the what the cable this side cheaper lah.
Yeah lah, I tell you no brain this fucker. Bro can terbalik kan or not? I think can ah.
Can see? I think can the screen.
Oh, readiness.
Higher a bit lah.
That can lah.
We very stupid.
You are stupid.
If Abun lie down more, cannot see anything.
If you lie down means you don't see ah. Okay what?
No.
係咪我 OK？
No.
No 你嘅係啊 no。可以哦。
真係咯。
媽！
I did it.
Fuck shit. Fuck. 好啊，幾百多，來啦。
Yeah, that one mirror but look表.
No,
straight out lah. Straight out. Let look like.
Oh, mantap boh. Oh, mantap 這個好看。OK， 啱，就是這樣子啊。
Boost 這個，醒一邊啊，表。
No, spell. Face you 啊。paling best punya.
Face police.
Oh, tak ada boh.
Come on，不錯啊，機會，我機會厲害啊。
Speed test 會快啲 boost。OK，搞掂咗，聽日去試，再見。
3 weeks later.
Now that the boost gauge has been installed in the S4, let's take it for a test drive and I give you my reviews. Now, today is actually the 14th of April. We have procrastinated way too long to shoot the ending of this video. So, it's currently 7:15. It's already very dark. So, I will just keep the interior lights on so that you can see my very handsome face and my very handsome meter. There, here you can see the EPMAN Boost gauge. Currently, it's already running lah. Okay, then before we go, I thought it's gonna be good if I can show you how the gauge function. Okay, tengok ah. Okay, when I start the car, there is gonna be an opening ceremony. You see the opening ceremony. Okay, then same goes for when I off the car. See, it's gonna be a opening and closing ceremony. So the gauge is handsome like this lah. Okay, when the car is at a still, if I were to rev on the accelerator, you can see that the gauge. You can see that the gauge moves. So it means that the gauge is detecting the vacuum in our engine and the gauge is responding according to the vacuum in our engine lah. So far so good, everything is good. So let's go. Ooh, okay. You want to look out and listen for any weird noises or any hissing, or does your car drive different? These are the very important things you want to look out for every time you catch out your engine. Okay? Okay, up until this point in the video, I have not felt anything unusual with my car. I don't think it is leaking boost, so I can suppose that the installation of the boost gauge was done very cleanly and very successfully. Now that the boost gauge is installed, I want to see what is the max boost I can hit with my stock S4. Bone stock ah. .8 bars. Okay, too fast. Wait. The max boost I hit just now is around 0.8 bars. 3, 2, 1, let's go. To 100, 5.35 seconds. Max boost, I don't know, need to watch back the video lah. I suppose it's gonna be somewhere around 0.8. So this is how the gauge looks like when I'm driving. And you know, sometimes this kind of boost gauge, right, it's not really necessary. If you wanna argue about the necessity of the boost gauge, it's not really necessary. You don't really need it 100%, but you know, it's kind of just fun for you to have a boost gauge here that you can, at any time while you're driving, at any time you can just pick, and then you can know, oh, I'm currently boosting, or I'm not boosting. This is what happens. This is what happens when the car is at a still. This is what happens when I'm city driving. This is what happens when I'm trying to get to my top speed. So it's just fun lah. This is what playing with cars should be all about. It should be fun. So this is it for this video. We have reached the end of the video. In this video, I have shown you how to install the boost gauge, do up the wirings, and install the boost adapter plate, and how to have fun while you are toying around with your car. I hope this video has helped you in many ways, be it your workshop, an individual trying to install your own gauge, or blah blah blah. So if you like our video, please remember not to subscribe. Don't dislike, don't share with your friends. And I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.